Know yourself. A dynamic network analysis during a pandemic. Are you a hungry person? Most people feel capable of answering this question. How about, how hungry were you for the past 2 weeks? This question might be a bit more difficult, as answering it requires remembering a specific period in the past. These kinds of self-report questions are sometimes used in psychological research, but is our memory actually precise enough to provide a valuable answer? Now, what if we asked if you were hungry 3 hours ago, or if you felt sad or stressed? Given the short amount of time that has passed, this is easier to recall, and you're likely to give a more accurate response. These types of questions, relating to current feelings, thoughts, and behaviors, are used in ecological momentary assessment, or short, EMA. EMA is a research tool that psychologists and other researchers use to collect data moment by moment, for example, through smartphones, in real-life settings rather than a research lab. Due to its many advantages, we, a group of 16 bachelor students, decided to conduct a study using EMA in about 100 university students. For our bachelor theses, we had 2 goals in mind: student mental health and missing data. You might get the impression that these are 2 unrelated topics, but they actually aren't. Maybe a short explanation helps. Our first goal was to investigate the relationship between mental health variables like depression and anxiety on the one hand, and other variables that may be related to mental health like hunger or anger on the other. From previous research, we already know that the prevalence rates of depression, anxiety, and stress are higher in university students compared to the general population. These circumstances call for more research to find out which constructs predict these psychological complaints and, indeed, how these constructs are related to each other over time. Our first goal. However, if we want to draw solid conclusions from our findings, it is important to know whether sample characteristics such as gender, age, motivation, or mental health of the participants might influence compliance rates and bias our results. You need to know that filling out an app on your phone for 2 weeks, multiple times a day, can be quite time-consuming, and it is possible that people with certain characteristics may provide less data this way. We would not want this to influence our results, and so our second aim was to assess if any characteristics of our participants predicted missing EMA data. We collected the data on smartphones over 2 weeks. Every participant was asked to respond to a prompt and answer a survey with 18 questions 4 times a day. As our assessment period coincided with the outbreak of COVID-19, we had the opportunity to additionally investigate how quarantine measures affect student mental health. So, what were our results for the first question? Which variables were related to student mental health? We investigated fatigue, anger, hunger, social media use, loneliness, procrastination, time spent outdoors, time spent listening to music, and offline social contact. To measure mental health, we included symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress, which we derived from validated questionnaires. Depression was captured by feelings of having nothing to look forward to, and anhedonia, which is the inability to experience positive feelings. Anxiety was represented by worry and feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge. Stress was depicted by irritability and finding it difficult to relax. In what follows, we show for each construct how it was related at the same time point and across time to the next time point. The former is called contemporaneous, the latter temporal. Here's what we found. Anger was persistently related to stress. Contemporaneously, anger was positively associated with irritability, feeling nervous, and anhedonia. Temporally, anger and irritability positively predicted each other. Anger also positively predicted difficulty to relax and itself. Loneliness was consistently related to depression. Contemporaneously, loneliness was positively related to anhedonia, feelings of having nothing to look forward to, and worry. Temporally, loneliness predicted itself, anhedonia, and feelings of having nothing to look forward to, and was predicted by the latter. We also found that loneliness was related to anxiety. Loneliness predicted both worry and feeling nervous, but it was negatively predicted by feeling nervous. With regard to stress, irritability predicted loneliness. Social media use and mental health were not related contemporaneously. It was, however, associated with procrastination. Temporally, social media use was predicted by stress and depression, and it predicted stress and itself. Procrastination was associated with anxiety and depression symptoms contemporaneously. Temporally, procrastination was associated with anxiety symptoms and itself. Interestingly, fatigue, hunger, and the time spent listening to music were not related to the mental health outcomes we included, even though previous research has found them to be associated with mental health. This could be because we did not have sufficient power to pick up small effects, or because we didn't capture the variables well, or because we tap into within-person processes, whereas other work has mostly focused on between-person effects. At last, our findings also provide some relief. Despite the adversity of the COVID-19 pandemic, the most often chosen answer option for almost all mental health problems was equal to the lowest possible intensity, which means participants indicated that they experienced the symptoms in question predominantly not at all. During the study period, at least, our sample appeared to handle the situation quite well. Now, let's move on to the second topic of our study, missing data. The overall missing data was 16.1% of 56 total EMA measurement points, which is relatively low in comparison to previous research. It may be so low because we provided students with study credits proportional to the number of EMA assessments they completed. Interestingly, the burden created by the COVID-19 pandemic and the perceived stress had an influence on respondents' level of missing data. Participants who experienced more stress caused by the COVID-19 pandemic answered fewer surveys than those who experienced less stress. In addition, we found that external regulation, a type of motivation, influenced the amount of missing data. People who scored higher on this type of motivation, probably because they wanted to receive incentives like credits or the chance to win a raffle, had, on average, less missing data. In line with the findings of other studies, we did not find that demographics, such as age and gender, affected whether participants missed EMA surveys. Neither did other baseline characteristics, such as conscientiousness, which means being careful, organized, and diligent, trait mindfulness, which is the ability to be fully present in the moment, depression and anxiety, and voluntary in-person social activity predict missed EMA surveys. People who were more socially active did not comply with EMA differently than others who were less active. Even self-efficacy did not influence whether participants answered the EMA surveys or not. That is, students with high confidence in their ability to reach a desired outcome did not answer more or fewer EMA surveys than students with low confidence. These findings are promising for future EMA usage, as it shows that the previously mentioned factors do not influence missing data, at least in a fairly healthy student sample. To conclude, with the use of EMA, we were able to research the relation between mental health outcomes and variables like anger, hunger, and social contact in the daily lives of students and predicted EMA missingness by a range of variables assessed at baseline. Given our findings, we encourage future researchers to increasingly use EMA for psychological research.